everyone. I am Hardika Vira, Chief Clinical Dietitian and Head of Kidney Vertical at Coutinho Holistic Healing System. Today, we are going to talk about water retention. So basically, I know a lot of people who have been having issues of water retention. We'll look at what are the possible causes, and I'm going to share top 5 tips in general which helps in water retention. Okay, so let's begin. When I talk about water retention, what is it exactly? Water retention, as the name suggests, it's accumulation of fluids in the system or in the body, right? Thereby, you notice that there's swelling, there is edema in a lot of people, right? That's a sign that you do have water retention. You do feel puffiness, okay? So that's water retention. Now, when we talk about water retention, there could be many causes which is causing it, right? It need not be just one thing that whenever you feel, you must have seen, people who have long travels, maybe who have traveled on flights, or basically you're sitting in one position for a very long duration of time. You feel bloated, you feel puffy after you have reached the destination and all, right? Why all these occurs, right? Let's look into all the possible causes. Now, number one is, if I talk about the possible things which meals can cause water retention, is one would be the intake of salt, ideally. Okay, so I can also say intake of sodium. Why? Because it's not necessarily that you are adding salt into the food and only then consuming it. However, currently in these days, we do reach out for a lot of processed foods, and hence you end up taking a lot of processed foods which contains good amount of sodium in the form of preservatives, and hence the amount of sodium that you end up taking is way higher than what you really require. In this case, what really happens is sodium ends up absorbing more amount of water, and hence you notice water retention. Okay, so that's number one. Secondly, I would say, with regards to water intake, that's one of the most important things. Many people, they end up neglecting water. That's one of the most important things in a person's day-to-day life. But because people are so busy, they end up not really looking into taking in more water, and thereby you do end up having issues in terms of water retention. I'll tell you why. Because whenever you're drinking you're drinking less amount of water, or you're not drinking enough water, your body holds on to more water because it requires it for a lot of metabolic activities that it undertakes. Okay, so that's another reason. Thirdly, a lot of females out there would agree with me. Whenever you are about to reach your menses, at that point of time, you do notice bloating and water retention, but that is because of hormonal issues, and it does come down immediately after you have you have started with your menses as well. That's mostly because of the progesterone levels going low. Then when I talk about other conditions specifically, a person who's suffering from hypertension and is on higher doses of medications, that may also lead to it. Secondly, a person who's suffering from kidney diseases, specifically because the kidney is responsible for flushing off all the toxins as well as maintaining the balance and all of those for the urine output, which does not take place, and hence you end up storing in more water, and water retention is also noticed. There's also one more thing which is more in relation to protein intake. Okay. In fact, I have seen a lot of cases and blood reports wherein the serum albumin levels, which is one of the proteins, whenever the proteins level is lesser in the blood, you would notice that the person has a higher tendency to have water retention. Okay. Apart from that, a person who has had heart diseases as such, or heart failure specifically, in that case also what really happens is, because the pumping is affected to such a larger extent, that the person would notice that there's more amount of water retention that has been happening, and in fact they have to be put on water restriction as well. You would notice a lot of swelling in or water retention in the extremities, specifically the feet and all. Right, and for people who are suffering from liver conditions as well, specifically if I have to name cirrhosis, you would notice a lot of ascites wherein there's abdominal water retention that's been noticed. Okay, apart from that, what we also have to look at is the lifestyle related. Okay, when I say lifestyle related, nowadays what really happens is we are either working out for an hour or half an hour, and then we are sedentary most of the time, right? And for certain people whose work involves them to be on their feet or on their toes for a very longer duration of time, that is also going to cause more amount of water retention because of the pressure that it creates. Okay, so what we really have to do here is ensure that we do take enough breaks in between. Okay, for people who are just sitting in, because the blood circulation and all is affected to such a larger extent that you do end up facing issues with regards to flushing off the toxins via the lymphatic system. Because when the circulatory system works better, that is the only time wherein you would notice that all the lymphatic drainage or excess fluid is reaching either your kidneys, it is reaching your excretory organs and all of those in order to flush it off from the system. Okay, and apart from that, most of the females who would have conceived and are pregnant would also notice that pregnancy is one time, specifically the last trimester, wherein you do notice a lot of swelling in the feet specifically, right? So one thing here which all of you all have to keep into consideration, until and unless the swelling is in the feet or in the lower body part, it's okay. But once you start noticing the swelling in your hands as well as on the face, that definitely means you have to go and visit your doctor. It could be because of high blood pressure or preeclampsia, as it is called, which is a little dangerous. Okay, so ensure that you do reach out to your doctor on time for the same. Next, what I would also want to talk about specifically is consider a person who's suffering from, say, deep vein thrombosis, which is nothing but clots in the veins, basically. When a person is maybe just recovering from surgery or, during a long flight as well. This is something which is also noticed, because of which you all notice that there's, swelling and all that has been there. Right, so these are few of the causes. There could be many more as such, many other conditions as well, right from your liver, your heart, your diabetes, hypertension. All of these are going to cause issues in terms of water retention. Okay, so for you or for a person to understand what are the possible causes for me because of which I am noticing water retention, it could as simple as be because I have had outside processed food more, I have had less amount of proteins, or I have hypertension, or I have taken some medicines. Now, in terms of medication as well, people who are suffering from, say, anxiety and other issues, so antidepressants and other meds that are given also has a side effect of water retention. Okay, so there are quite a few things that we have to look at. There are various reasons. What is it that is applicable for you? That's what we need to look at and address it so that you could work on the root cause accordingly. Now, coming to top 5 tips that I was talking to you all about. Now, these tips are going to be in general whenever you have water retention that you would notice. So number 1, if I'm talking about on a meal perspective, what we all have to take or keep into consideration is reduce the processed food intake because it is very high in sodium. Avoid using a lot of salt over your food. Don't add it over the top. Let you use only the salt that is required for cooking. Okay, don't add it over the top. There are certain conditions wherein say like hypertension or kidney diseases, wherein there would be a demand for you to restrict your salt intake as well. Please ensure that is being done. Secondly, what's very important is when we are talking about the processed food and all, as I told you, it might not be in the form of salt, but it is because of the preservatives that has been used. You notice that the amount of sodium going into your system is very, very high. So sticking on to more natural foods is something which is very much important. Apart from that, ensure your protein intake is good enough. When you have good amount of proteins, that is also going to help in prevention of water retention, which could be because of protein malnutrition or lesser intake of proteins. Okay, so that's another thing that we can definitely look into. Apart from that, having good serving of fruits and veggies, specifically the green leafy veggies. I'm talking about the gourd veggies. Then if I have to talk about, say, in terms of fruits, almost all the fruits, at least one serving, unless and until you have certain issues and you have been asked not to have it. Please ensure you are doing it because you are having it, because these are also good sources of potassium, and it helps a lot in terms of managing your sodium levels as well. Okay. Now coming to the second part, the second tip specifically that I would want to give you would be on your water intake. Okay, so ensure that your water intake is good enough. There's this whole myth in a lot of people that if I have water retention and if I have more water, then I'm going to face issues. That's not true unless and until you have been facing issues like, say, for example, heart-related issues, cirrhosis, or kidney diseases, wherein your doctor has asked you to restrict your water. Otherwise, no. You have to ensure you're drinking enough water, because as I told you, whenever you are dehydrated, your body is going to demand to hold on to more water and not let it go off, because if you're dehydrated, you're not taking enough water, it is going to hold on to it. Otherwise, your body will not be able to function well. So it's important you have enough of water so that all that is being released well. Thirdly, what I would want to talk about is the natural diuretics, which you can definitely use for a shorter duration of time whenever you have issues of say maybe just premenses, or whenever you notice you have swelling or puffiness because of, say, long traveling, not being able to sleep well, etc., etc. Right? Now, these diuretics are going to help you for a shorter duration of time. We don't want you to be continuing it just for the sake of continuing it and continue with your bad lifestyle as such. Okay, it's not the right way to do it. So in terms of the natural diuretics, what I would like to talk about would be the coriander seed water. So when I say coriander seed water, what are we supposed to do? You could take in 1 tablespoon of coriander seed. You could add it in a glass of water, let it stay in overnight. Okay, infuse it overnight. Next morning, you can just crush it a bit, give it a boil. Okay, strain and consume that. That's one of the best diuretics as such. Even barley water works really well in terms of as a diuretic. The same process has to be repeated even for the same. What you could also try and do is inclusion of parsley in your meals, in your day-to-day regime, maybe in the form of vegetable juice that you might be having, or in your salads and all. That also works really well specifically for reducing your water retention. Okay, this is in terms of the natural diuretics. Next, what I would want to tell you is exercise. That's something which is very, very important and is going to solve a lot of your issues in terms of the water retention. Why? Because as I was talking about the causes, I also mentioned that most of the issues arises because there's an issue with the circulation, right? So when you talk about the circulation, when you do exercise or basic movements as well, that is going to help in better circulation, bringing about that excess fluid into the right parts to be excreted from the system, the eliminatory systems, right? So thereby not allowing too much of water to be restored. You would notice a huge difference for all the people who are being sedentary most of the times and have been facing issues with regards to water retention. Once you start moving around more, you would notice that this issue has been, much, much better. For a lot of people who have been having issues, are on bed rest and cannot move, what can you do for them? Ensure that you are pressing or massaging their legs and hands, specifically the extremities for that matter, in order to help improve the circulation on those parts. So that also really helps a lot in terms of reducing the water retention. One more thing that you could do here, specifically for people who are not too active, or just basically who just cannot move out due to certain medical reasons, right? For them, there's something called as dry brushing technique, which you could definitely use. So when I say dry brushing, what is to be done? There's a dry brush that you have to take. It's very easily available online as well. And what you need to do is for each body part, maybe you start from your legs, from your hands and everything. The stroke has to be in one direction towards your heart. Okay, so 7 times you stroke in the same region, in the same area, and that is how it will help in better lymphatic drainage. Okay, so that's one of the best ways that could also work for you all. And fifth and the last tip that I would want to give you is, specifically when people have issues and they have been sitting for a long time, keeping their legs, just in a position wherein it is, hanging down. That is causing more amount of issues. So what you could always do is, after an injury or any other issue wherein you would notice that the swelling has increased, elevation of the legs, or maybe if you have got hurt in your hands, then you may want to elevate your hand as well. So elevation helps a lot in terms of improving or reducing the water retention specifically. Okay, so these are certain things which we definitely want to look at trying and implementing and see a lot of difference in terms of water retention. Now, what I spoke about was generally for a person who is suffering, who's not really suffering from any specific disease as such. However, if you have heart-related conditions, you have liver-related condition, you have kidney-related condition, then we need to first work upon those in order to see a difference. Okay, so all of these tips, not all of these would be applicable for them. So you may want to talk to your consultant accordingly and get it sorted. For people who are on diuretics specifically, what you may want to also ensure is that you are being in touch with your doctor, because then certain diuretics also increases or decreases certain electrolyte levels specifically. Okay, so please be cautious about it. I cannot miss out on one point wherein, if I'm talking about, say, alcohol intake specifically, for people who have been having alcohol on a regular basis, or people who are too much into coffee, caffeine and all of those, you have to ensure that you do restrict the amount that you are having. You cannot go overboard, have as much as you like, because that definitely causes more amount of water retention into your system. Specifically, I'm talking about alcohol. When you talk about caffeine, caffeine works as a diuretic, but then it dehydrates your system more. So whenever you're having these and you know it is causing a negative impact, what you all really have to do is ensure after every cup or every small glass of alcohol or small drink that you have to ensure you are compensating it with a glass of water. Okay, so I hope this really helps you all in terms of managing your water retention in case you or any of your loved ones have that issue. And please let me know in case you have any queries. I'll be happy to answer those. You all could also put your queries later on the video, which would be shared on the page, and I would be happy to help you all answer those later on. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead.